The throne room of the Valoran Empire was huge and bright. Lights from 1,000 glowing crystals filled the space. Aliens of many kinds stood in rows, waiting to hear their assignments. Some were tall and made of living stone. Others had wings or many arms. All of them looked important. Park Do-hwan stood among them. He was human. He was not tall. He was not glowing. He had no wings or special powers. He was just a man from Earth with brown eyes and black hair. The aliens around him barely looked at him. When they did, they smiled in a way that was not kind. The High Chamberlain, a Valaran named Torvak, read names from a glowing scroll. Valarans were beautiful creatures. Their skin was covered in scales that shone like jewels. Light came from inside their bodies. The brighter they glowed, the more important they were. Torvak's voice echoed through the room. One by one, he gave each diplomat their assignment. The best diplomats got the best jobs. They would work with powerful princes and wealthy planets. Then Torvak said Do-hwan's name. Park Do-hwan of Earth, he announced. You are assigned to Princess Yera of the Sixth Moon. The room went quiet. Then someone laughed. Then more joined in. The laughter spread like a wave. Do-hwan kept his face calm. He knew who Princess Yera was. Everyone knew. She was called the Barren Princess. Among the Valorans, she was considered worthless. The Valorans measured everything by light. A bright glow meant health, beauty, and the ability to have children. Princess Yera did not glow. Her scales were gray and dull. The doctor said she could never have children. So her family sent her away. They put her on a mining station at the edge of the empire where no one would see her. A human for the barren one, someone whispered loudly. They matched two worthless things together. Do-hwan heard every word. He did not react. He simply bowed and accepted his orders. As he walked out of the throne room, a woman caught his arm. It was Captain Yoon Mi-rae, his commanding officer. She was also human, with sharp eyes and a worried look on her face. You know what they're doing, she said quietly. They're testing us. They want to see if Earth will complain about this insult. I know, Do-hwan replied. Will you ask for a different assignment? No. Mi-rae studied him for a moment. You're a strange man, Park Do-hwan. He smiled, but his eyes were serious. I've been called worse. The journey to Corvus Station took 3 weeks. Do-hwan spent the time reading everything he could find about Princess Yera. The official records were short and cold. They listed her birth, her condition, and her exile. Nothing more. The unofficial records were cruel. People called her ugly. They called her cursed. They said she was a mistake that should have been erased. Do-hwan read it all. His face stayed calm, but inside, something burned. When his ship finally arrived at Corvus Station, he was not impressed. The station was old and dirty. The walls were stained with rust. The lights flickered. It smelled like metal and loneliness. The station commander was a Skard, Valoran named Dreth. He looked at Do-hwan's papers and snorted. The princess is in the west section, Dreth said. She doesn't like visitors. But I guess you're not really a visitor. You're more like a babysitter for something nobody wants. Do-hwan did not respond. He just walked away. Finding Yera's quarters was not easy. The corridors twisted and turned. The deeper he went, the darker it became. The lights here were broken. Nobody had fixed them. Nobody cared. Finally, he found an unmarked door. He pressed the button to announce himself and waited. The door opened. Princess Yera stood before him. Do-hwan understood immediately why her people had rejected her. The Valarans were supposed to shine like stars. Yera did not shine at all. Her scales were the color of storm clouds. Her eyes were large and dark, like deep water. She was not ugly, Do-hwan thought. She was different. But the Valarans could not see the difference. You must be the human, Yera said. Her voice was soft and careful, like someone who had learned that words could hurt. Double quotes, yes, Your Highness. Do-Wan bowed deeply. My name is Park Do-Wan. I am honored to serve you. Yara blinked. She had not expected honor. She had expected mockery or pity. They told me not to expect much from you, she said. They told me the same about you. Do-Wan met her eyes. I think they were wrong. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Yara studied the human before her. He was small and soft. He had no claws, no armor, no light. And yet he looked at her without fear or disgust. He looked at her like she was a person. Why are you here? She asked. Really? Do-Wan considered the question. Because I believe everyone deserves to be seen, even those the world has thrown away. Something flickered in Yara's dark eyes. It might have been surprise. It might have been hope. She had forgotten what hope felt like. You may enter, she said at last. But I warn you, there is nothing here worth seeing. The Empire made sure of that. Do-Wan stepped inside. The door closed behind him. In that small, forgotten room on a broken station at the edge of nowhere, something began. Neither of them knew it yet. They did not know that this moment would change the galaxy. They did not know that empires would shake and assumptions would crumble. They only knew that for the first time in a very long time, neither of them felt completely alone. 3 months passed on Corvus Station. Every morning, Park Do-Wan woke up early. He went to the station's small kitchen and cooked food. Not the bland nutrition blocks that everyone else ate. Real food. Food from Earth. He had paid a lot of money to have the ingredients shipped across the galaxy. Then he carried the food to Princess Yara's quarters. At first, she was suspicious. No one had ever brought her gifts. No one had ever wanted to spend time with her. But Do-Wan came every day. He never missed a morning. He never complained. What is this? Yara asked one day, looking at a bowl of warm soup. It's called kimchi jjigae, Do-Wan said. My grandmother used to make it. Try it. Yara tasted it. Her eyes went wide. She had never eaten anything so full of flavor. Every afternoon, they sat together in the station's old observation deck. The deck had huge windows that looked out at the stars. Nobody used it anymore. The glass was dirty and the seats were broken. But to Yara, it became the most beautiful place in the universe. Do-Wan told her stories. He told her about Earth. He told her about oceans so big you could not see the end. He told her about mountains covered in white snow. He told her about humans who had been told they were worthless but proved everyone wrong. On Earth, he said one day, we have a word called Han. It is hard to explain. It is a kind of sadness that comes from being hurt by the world, from being treated unfairly, from wounds that never fully heal. Yara was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, Do you think I have this, Han? I think you have survived things that would have destroyed most people. Do-Wan looked at her. I think that makes you strong, not weak. Nobody had ever called Yara strong before. Every evening, Do-Wan left her with a small gift. Sometimes it was a flower he had grown in the station's old garden. Sometimes it was a paper crane he had folded with his hands. The Valorans did not understand paper folding. They thought it was strange that someone would spend so much time making something so small. But Yara kept every crane. She lined them up on her windowsill. They were the first beautiful things she had, owned in years. The other people on the station watched all of this with confusion. They whispered about the strange human who treated the Barren princess like she mattered. He's wasting his time, said Dreth, the station commander. She's nothing. He's nothing. Nothing plus nothing equals nothing. But Dreth did not know what Do-Wan did at night. When everyone else was sleeping. Do-Wan worked. Before he became a diplomat, Do-Wan had been a scientist. He studied alien bodies and how they worked. And from the first day he met Yura, something had bothered him about her condition. The Valorans said she was broken. They said her body could not make light. They said she was barren. But Dohwan asked a different question. What if they were wrong? What if her body was doing something else? Night after night, he read old medical books. He ran computer simulations. He studied everything he could find about Valoran biology. And slowly he began to understand. Yara's body was not broken. It was different. The energy that should have made her glow was going somewhere else. It was making something the Valorans had never thought to look for. Dohwan's heart raced as he worked. He was close to something big. Something that would change everything. But before he could finish his research, disaster came. The attack started without warning. Dohwan was in the station's garden when the alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed. The floor shook. He heard explosions in the distance. Pirates. The Keth. They were a cruel species who attacked weak stations and took people to sell as slaves. Dohwan ran toward Yara's quarters. The corridors were filled with smoke and screaming. He saw station workers running. He saw Keth soldiers with their black armor and sharp weapons. When he reached Yara's door, his blood went cold. 2 Keth soldiers were dragging her into the hallway. She was fighting, but she was small, and they were strong. One of the soldiers scanned her with a device. This one has no light, he growled. She's diseased, worthless. Then kill her, said the other. Don't waste time. The soldier raised his weapon. Dohwan moved. Humans were strange creatures. They had no claws. They had no armor. They could not run as fast as many aliens. They could not see as far or hear as well. But humans had something else. Something the galaxy always forgot. Millions of years ago, humans had hunted animals across the plains of Earth. They could not catch their prey quickly, so they chased them for hours. For days, they ran until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans were built to endure. And when they fought with a fury that came from the deepest part of their nature. Dohwan grabbed a broken pipe from the floor. He hit the first soldier before anyone knew he was there. The soldier fell. He did not get up. The second soldier turned, shocked. Dohwan was already moving. His hands found the soldier's throat. Humans had soft hands, but soft hands could squeeze very hard. The soldier fell. A third soldier came around the corner. He raised his weapon to fire. But Dohwan was faster. He remembered his training. He remembered that all creatures with 2 legs had the same weak points. The third soldier fell. Silence. Dohwan stood in the corridor. His hands were shaking. His clothes were covered in alien blood. But his eyes were calm. Yara stared at him. Her mouth was open. She could not speak. Finally, she whispered, "What? What are you?" Dohwan took a breath. "I'm human," he said. "Just human." He reached out his hand to her. "Come with me. We need to hide. And then we need to fight back." Yara took his hand. Her fingers were cold. But for the first time since the attack began, she was not afraid. She was with the human. And somehow, she knew that meant she was safe. The battle for Corvus Station lasted 4 days. Park Dohwan did not sleep. He gathered the survivors. He made plans. He turned mining tools into weapons. He set traps in the corridors. He taught the station workers how to fight. The Keth pirates had expected easy prey. They found something else. One by one, Dohwan took them down. He was patient. He was careful. He waited for the right moment, then struck hard and fast. The Keth began to whisper about a ghost in the station. A small, soft creature that killed without mercy. Through it all, Yara stayed by his side. She watched him work with wide eyes. She had thought she knew who Park Dohwan was. A quiet diplomat. A kind man who brought her food and folded paper cranes. But there was another side to him. A side that was made of iron and fire. On the third night, while they hid in the storage room, she finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "You're not just a diplomat," she said. "You were never just a diplomat." Dohan was checking a weapon he had taken from a dead Keth soldier. "My file says I am a cultural liaison with a background in xenobiology. Files can lie." He looked up at her. In the dim light, his eyes were unreadable. "Humans learn to survive," he said quietly. "Our planet has always been dangerous. We had to adapt. We had to fight. It's in our blood. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give." Yara was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Why did you save me?" "Those soldiers were going to kill me. You could have hidden. You could have saved yourself." Dohan stopped what he was doing. He met her eyes. "Because your life matters. My people don't think so. Your people are wrong." Simple words. But they hit Yara harder than any weapon could. On the fourth day, the last Keth pirates were defeated. The station's communication system was repaired. Help was called. Rescue ships would arrive soon. That night, Doan and Yara sat together in the observation deck. The stars shone through the dirty windows. They were both tired. They were both wounded. But they were alive. "There's something I need to tell you," Doan said. Yara turned to look at him. He pulled out a small device and activated it. Holographic images appeared in the air. Charts and graphs and biological diagrams. "Before the attack, I was researching your condition," he said. "I'm a scientist. I couldn't stop thinking about why your body doesn't produce light." Yara's heart began to beat faster. "What did you find?" "Your doctors said you were broken. They said your light-making cells don't work." Doan pointed to one of the diagrams. "They were wrong. Your cells work perfectly. They're just doing something different." "What do you mean?" "Valoran bodies turn energy into light. Your body turns that same energy into something else. A special chemical compound. Your doctors never found it because they never looked for it. They only looked for light." Yara's hands were trembling. "What kind of compound?" Doan's voice was gentle but serious. "A healing compound. Your blood, your body, they produce something that can repair damaged tissue. Something that can heal wounds that should be impossible to heal." He paused. "Yara, you're not barren. You're not broken. Your body is doing something incredible. Something no other Valoran can do." Tears began to fall down Yara's face. They slid over her gray scales like silver rivers. "They threw me away," she whispered. "My own family. They said I was worthless. They sent me here to die. They were fools." Dawan's voice was hard. "They looked at you and saw what you didn't have. They never thought to ask what you did have. Why?" Yara's voice cracked. "Why did you see what they couldn't?" Dohan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated. Humans always are. We're small. We're soft. We don't have natural weapons. The galaxy looks at us and sees nothing special." He met her eyes. "But being overlooked can be a gift. It teaches you to look closer, to see what others miss. I saw you, Yara. Really saw you. And I knew they were wrong." Yara could not speak. For 20 years, she had believed what her people told her. That she was a mistake. That she had no value. That she deserved to be hidden away. Now a human, a small and ordinary human, had torn the lie apart. The rescue ships arrived the next morning. Among them was a diplomatic vessel, carrying Ambassador Quan Hisu, the most important human official in this part of space. She was a sharp woman with cold eyes and a careful mind. She found Doan in the medical bay and was not happy. "You've caused problems," she said. "You released research without permission. You fought without orders." "I saved lives," Dohan replied calmly. The door opened. Princess Yara walked in. She was still gray. She still did not glow. But something about her had changed. She stood taller. She walked with purpose. She looked like a princess. "Ambassador Quan," Yara said, "I want to thank Park Doan for his service. I also want him to come with me to the imperial capital. I have something important to share with my family. I will need a human's perspective." Quan looked surprised. "The imperial court may not welcome. The imperial court will welcome me," Yara interrupted, "because I have information that will change everything. And I will not deliver it without Park Doan by my side." She looked at Dohan. He looked back at her. Something passed between them. An understanding. A partnership. Ambassador Quan saw this and knew she had lost the argument. "Very well," she said slowly. "But this had better not cause a diplomatic incident." Yara smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to prove the entire galaxy wrong. "Oh, Ambassador," she said. "I'm counting on it." Park Doin was not special. He knew this. Everyone knew this. He was 28 years old and worked as a logistics officer for the Korean Space Agency. His job was simple. He counted boxes. He tracked supplies. He made sure the scientists had enough food and the equipment reached the right places. It was boring work, but Do-yoon liked boring. Boring was safe. Boring was predictable. Today, however, was not boring. Dahyun stood on the surface of Keva 7, a dead moon at the edge of known space. The sky above was black and filled with unfamiliar stars. The ground beneath his boots was gray dust that had not moved in millions of years. He did not want to be here. He wanted to be back on Earth, eating his mother's cooking and watching old movies. But the expedition needed someone to manage supplies, and Dae-yoon was available. The real excitement was happening 200 meters away. A massive hole had been dug into the moon's surface, revealing something that made every scientist in the galaxy lose their minds. A tomb. Not just any tomb, but a structure older than any known civilization. The symbols carved into its walls matched nothing in any database. The metal it was made from did not exist on the periodic table. Do-yoon watched from a distance as important. People argued about important things. The Velen delegation stood tallest. They were beings made of living crystal, their bodies catching light and throwing rainbows across the gray dust. Their ambassador, a female whose name Do-yoon could not pronounce, insisted that her people should enter first. The Velen were the oldest known species in the galaxy. They believed this gave them rights. The Mareshi disagreed. They floated in hovering tanks filled with purple water, their tentacles pressing against the glass as they argued through translated devices. The Mareshi were aquatic beings who had conquered 1,000 water worlds. They believed their scientific achievements made them worthy. The Kelthi made everyone nervous. They looked like insects the size of humans, with black shells and too many eyes. They did not argue. They simply watched, their mandibles clicking in a way that sounded like whispered threats. The Kelthi had once ruled this sector of space. They wanted to rule it again. And then there were the humans. Dawn's people. They stood in a small group, trying to look confident while being surrounded by aliens who had traveled the stars when humans were still learning to use fire. Do-yoon did not join the arguments. Arguments were above his pay grade. Instead, he walked around the dig site, checking that the supply containers were properly sealed. The dust on this moon was strange. It got into everything. 3 scientists had already reported equipment failures because of it. He walked closer to the tomb than he intended. He was not paying attention. He was thinking about the supply manifest and whether they had enough water, filters for another week. The tomb was beautiful up close. The symbols seemed to move when he was not looking directly at them. The metal surface was perfectly smooth, without a single scratch despite being billions of years old. Do-hyun felt something strange. A warmth in his chest. A feeling like someone was watching him. He shook his head. He was being silly. He was a logistics officer, not a scientist or a soldier or anyone important. The universe did not care about Park Do-hyun. Then the dust got into his nose. It happened fast. One moment he was breathing normally. The next, his nose was burning and his eyes were watering, and he could feel the sneeze building like a wave. He tried to stop it. He really did. He pressed his finger under his nose. He held his breath. He thought about sad things and boring things and anything that might stop what was coming. It did not work. Do-hyun sneezed. It was not a small sneeze. It was the kind of sneeze that came from deep in the chest, that bent the body forward, that echoed across open spaces. It echoed now, bouncing off the tomb surface and rolling across the dig site. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to shake. Do-hyun stumbled backward, his heart pounding. The tomb surface was glowing. Golden light spread across the ancient metal like fire racing through dry grass. The symbols that had been still for billions of years began to spin and dance. Everyone at the dig site turned to look. The Velen ambassador dropped her ceremonial staff. The Moreshi tanks clustered together in fear. The Kelthi stopped clicking and went very, very still. The tomb doors opened. They did not swing open like normal doors. They folded away, layer after layer of impossible metal peeling back to reveal darkness within. Air rushed out, warm and sweet-smelling, like flowers that had never existed. Do-hyun wanted to run. Every part of his brain was screaming at him to run. But he could not move. His legs would not obey him. A beam of golden light shot from the darkness. It crossed the distance between the tomb and Do-hyun in less than a heartbeat. It struck him in the chest. He felt warmth. He felt peace. He felt something enter his mind, something vast and ancient and patient. Symbols appeared on his skin, glowing gold against his flesh. They covered his arms, his chest, his face. They were beautiful and terrifying. Then they faded, sinking beneath his skin like stones disappearing into water. A voice spoke in his mind. It spoke in perfect Korean, the dialect his grandmother used. Genetic signature confirmed. Emotional resonance detected. You have been selected as heir to the architects. Do-hyun stood frozen. His handkerchief was still clutched in his hand. His nose still tickled from the dust. Every being at the dig site stared at him. Scientists, soldiers, ambassadors, and aliens. All of them stared at the logistics officer, who had just been chosen by a power older than the stars. Do-hyun swallowed hard. I think there has been a mistake, he said. The voice in his mind responded with what felt like a smile. There has not. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. The news had spread across 1,000 worlds. The Barren princess was not barren at all. Her body produced a miracle. Scientists called it Yara's grace. It could heal wounds that should have been fatal. It could cure diseases that had killed millions. It was the greatest medical discovery in centuries, and it had been found by a human. The Valoran Empire was transformed. The old way of measuring worth by brightness was questioned. If the Grey Princess could produce something so valuable, what else had they missed? What other people had they thrown away? New laws were passed. New doctors were trained. New questions were asked. And at the center of it all stood Princess Yara and her human advisor. Park Do-hyun had tried to stay in the background. He did not want fame. He did not want power. He just wanted to continue his research and help where he could. But the galaxy would not let him hide. Humans from Earth sent messages of congratulations. Other species requested meetings with the human who had seen what the Valorans could not. Scientists asked to study with him. Politicians asked for his advice. Through it all, Yara stayed by his side. Just as he had stayed by hers, they made a strange pair. The gray princess and the small human. She towered over him by a foot. Her scales were the color of storm clouds, while his skin was soft and brown. When they walked together through the palace, people stared. But the staring was different now. It was not mockery. It was wonder. One evening, Yura found Dowan in his laboratory. He was surrounded by holographic displays, studying data from his latest research. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. "You work too much," she said. "There's a lot to do." He didn't look up. "The compound has so many applications. If I can just figure out how to synthesize it without needing Valoran biology." Dawan. Something in her voice made him stop. He turned to face her. Yera was wearing a formal gown. Silver threads were woven through the fabric, catching the light that she herself could not produce. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. It had just taken the galaxy too long to see it. "There's a ceremony tonight," she said. "Do you remember?" He blinked. "The alliance ceremony. Yes, I remember. Will you escort me?" Dawan hesitated. "Is that appropriate? I'm just an advisor. You should have someone more. I want you." Yara's voice was firm. "I don't care what's appropriate. I don't care what people think. You're the one who saw me when no one else did. You're the one who fought for me. You're the one I want beside me." For a long moment, Dawan was silent. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, but real. "All right," he said. "Let me change into something more formal." The ceremony was held in the palace's great hall. Hundreds of guests filled the room. Valorans, humans, and a dozen other species had come to witness the signing of a new alliance between Earth and the Valoran Empire. It was the first such alliance in history, and everyone knew who had made it possible. When Yara entered the hall with Dohan at her side, the crowd fell silent. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. Captain Yu Mai was there, watching from the human delegation section. She caught Dowan's eye and nodded. There was pride in her face. Ambassador Quan Hisu was also there. She had opposed Dowan once. Now she stood with the other human officials, clapping along with everyone else, even Prince Corvith, who had once mocked both Yera and her human guardian, raised his glass in salute. Emperor Rothak stood at the front of the hall. When Yera and Dowan reached him, he smiled. "1 year ago," the Emperor said, his voice carrying through the room, "I made a mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life. I cast aside my daughter because I could not see her worth. I was blind." He gestured to Dowan. "This human opened my eyes. He taught us that worth cannot be measured by brightness alone. He taught us that different does not mean lesser. He taught us that the greatest treasures are often hidden in plain sight." The Emperor raised his hand. A servant brought forward 2 ceremonial medals. One was shaped like a star. The other was shaped like a flame. "For Park Dohan of Earth," the Emperor announced, "the Star of Valora, given to those who serve the Empire with extraordinary distinction." He placed the medal around Dowan's neck. The human bowed, his face calm but his eyes bright with emotion. "And for my daughter, Princess Yera," the Emperor continued, "the flame of renewal, given to those who bring hope to the hopeless." Yera bent so her father could place the medal on her. When she straightened, there were tears in her eyes. But this time, she let them fall. After the formal ceremony ended and the documents were signed, the guests began to celebrate. Music played. Food was served. Laughter filled the hall. Yera and Dohan slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the palace gardens. "We did it," Yera said softly. We actually did it. You did it, Dohan replied. I just helped. Don't do that. She turned to face him. Don't make yourself small. Not with me. Not ever. He met her eyes. In the starlight, they both looked transformed. Not by medals or titles, by everything they had survived together. When I was assigned to you, Dohan said quietly, everyone laughed. They thought it was a joke. A worthless human for a worthless princess. I remember. I didn't think it was a joke. He stepped closer. I thought it was an opportunity. A chance to prove them wrong. About both of us. Yara reached up and touched his face. Her gray scales were cool against his warm cheek. You proved more than that, she said. You proved that the galaxy's assumptions are just stories we tell ourselves. And stories can be rewritten. She leaned down. He leaned up. Their lips met in the middle dot below them. The gardens glowed with bioluminescent flowers. Above them, the stars burned with ancient light. And between them, something new began. Something that neither empire nor prejudice could destroy. When they finally pulled apart, Yara laughed. It was a free sound, full of joy. They belittled us, she said. Both of us. They said we were nothing. Dohan smiled. They were wrong, yes. Yara took his hand and held it tight. They were wrong about everything. And as the celebration continued in the hall behind them, the Grey Princess and her humans stood together, looking out at the stars. They had been cast aside. They had been mocked. They had been told they were worthless. Now they had proven that worth is not given by others. It is found within. And sometimes it takes an outsider to help you see what was always there. The galaxy would never forget their story. The Barren Princess and her human. The ones who proved everyone wrong. And they lived not just happily, but fully, completely, together. As equals. As partners. As something the galaxy had never seen before. And that was the greatest transformation of all.